Hello, today I will speak to the beauty in crisis. What defines a crisis, what factors lead to a crisis, and how to best navigate a crisis. As we all know, crisis is a fact of life. It is something that we all face. So less can we control a crisis, and more can we adjust our response to improve the experience or outcomes of a crisis situation. By navigating predicaments more mindfully, we protect ourselves, we protect others, and we more likely align with best-case scenarios. And not that we need to become attached to best-case scenarios, but for good measure, it doesn't hurt to set the bar high. Let's define and unpack the meaning of crisis. The meaning in the root word crisis refers to critical. I have outlined 10 different ways to look at critical experiences. A crisis event can be described by number 1, sudden chaos, an abrupt halt, dramatic upheaval, something turned upside down or gone awry or viral. Number 2, major disaster, such as an accident, crash, tragedy, adversity, catastrophe, or casualties. Number 3, an urgent matter, a high priority or critical point, an emergency, the time to act and moment of decision. Number 4, a crisis event can be described by an immediate change, such as a turn of events, end of a cycle, loss of a way, a radical shift, or a set of new norms. Number 5, system breakdown, such as disturbances in equilibrium, something timed out, broke down, or hit an extreme. Number 6, impending danger. There's a threat to someone's safety, survival, connections, resources, or to their way of being. Number 7, a crisis event can be described by going beyond threshold, hitting a point of no return, entering unfamiliar territory, and feeling unable to bear or intolerance for a situation. Number 8, future concern. During a crisis, there is often high uncertainty and high instability with the potential for a negative outcome. Number 9, required action. A crisis is often a call to action during a moment of truth when one must face the situation and either retract, react, or respond. And the last way to define a crisis event is number 10, a test of character. Crises are a test of faith, a test of resilience, a test of one's heart nature, and a test of one's abilities. Now, there are different degrees and types of crisis. There is developmental crisis that happens over a period of life, such as growing up around violence, or situational crisis that happens in a moment's time, such as getting in a terrible accident. There are the invisible crises we cannot quite put our finger on, such as dis-ease at a microscopic level, and there are visible crises right in front of us, such as poor health causing immobility. There are crises behind the scenes, such as secret affairs, and there are crises on the surface, such as blatant conflict. There are crises within ourselves, and there are crises within our environment. As I touched on in episode 1, crises can show up in the natural, material, and spiritual world. Crises can threaten our survival, our human rights and freedoms, our skills and abilities, our knowledge and behavior, and our lifestyle and our wealth. People experience crises on their own, with their families and relationships, in their communities, and on a collective scale as well. Crisis can show up within any context of a person's consciousness or contextual life. So, what creates a crisis? Well, this is for each of us to determine for ourselves. But to note some general factors that are within our control, I would say that crisis could stem from neglect of important things and responsibilities, refusal to take care of things, ignorance and denial to the truth in a matter, dramatizing issues and perpetuating imbalances, dependence on toxic and harmful things, being unproductive with one's time and energy, unkind behavior that negatively affects others, and fear of anything that inhibits growth and promotes chaos. Crisis ends a cycle, rebirths anew, and becomes a catalyst for change. Undergoing or even being a part of a critical and emergency situation allows you to assess your ability to stay calm and to respond rationally under pressure. It shows you what you can do better next time. and not only in the prevention of a crisis, but also what you can do in the heat of fire. Going through extreme situations beyond your comfort zone and threshold strengthens your character and abilities. You learn how to identify and resolve core problems, make important decisions, and take immediate action, track progress, and create contingency plans for the future. Through these experiences, people learn how to work together and channel their fear and panic and stress and overwhelm into individual roles to support a greater solution. People learn how to trust in each other and work toward a common goal. And last to mention, going through experiences of crisis helps people to focus on what is most important in life. Next, navigating crisis. I use the word navigating to illustrate the degree of will and control that we have in a crisis situation. This doesn't mean that we can always prevent or stop or even influence the way that a critical or emergency situation unfolds. Navigation here refers more to the will and control that we have in our responses to crisis. And most people will agree that if we have any control in a crisis situation, that it's going to come in our response leading up to and during that critical time. Therefore, developing your crisis management skills ahead of time will help you to hold composure, think clearly, and manage stress so you can quickly find the best solution. Crises can cloud judgment if you are not prepared, making it hard to be of support to anyone or anything. The worst part of a crisis often shows up in our reaction to it. So, what is the process for effectively navigating a crisis situation, and what are some helpful crisis management skills? My disclaimer is that often our immediate intuition communicates the right action in each moment, so there isn't an absolute black and white outline for how to deal with crisis. If we knew how to deal with every situation, well then what would be the point of these situations? We'd already be past them. The teaching and growth comes in the unpredictability of life. Nobody knows what's coming. We just know that the tests keep coming. The important thing during a critical moment is to think for yourself, act in accordance with your own assessment of the situation and your own principles for how to deal with matters, and listening to your intuition. You are the one that has to live with how you handled things later. So you are the one that has to take responsibility in the moment for how you show up. So that being said, 3 things that I can offer as a guideline for navigating crisis to find the beauty in crisis is: number 1, acknowledge and assess the crisis. First, acknowledge what is happening. Take in the data or news that a critical situation is either near or here. However you trust to take in data, whether through your senses, special abilities, visual facts, personal research, expert findings, technologies, prophecies, the stars, however you have approved to take in data. Second, observe what factors are involved, what people, places, and things are associated, what factors led up to this event, who are the vulnerable parties, and what is at stake. And third, identify immediate needs. Who or what is in immediate jeopardy? Who are the most well-positioned and qualified people to support these needs? Are they stepping up? And is there anything that you can do to immediately save somebody's life? For instance, you come home from work to find that your husband is again pale and clammy in his office with a drink in his hand, reading a piece of mail. Earlier that day, you received a call that your daughter's ballet classes have not been paid in 3 months. And it dawns on you the joint bank accounts are running a little bit low, and you remember your husband talking about wanting to move lately, and you realize maybe he wasn't kidding. So you walk into his office and you notice a piece of mail on his desk that reads, "Notice of foreclosure." You take in the data, starting with the facts. The facts are that your house seems to be going into foreclosure, your bank accounts are low, and bills are being missed and you didn't know about it. These things you know for certain. Using your own reasoning, you further deduce that your husband has been sitting with this for a while, and your sense is that he has not been able to solve it. You acknowledge that your family is the vulnerable party, and that your house, lifestyle, healthcare, savings, and retirement is at stake. Since nobody's life is in immediate danger, you move to the second step. Number 2, centering and grounding. After you've acknowledged the level of critical situation at hand, but before you respond, you take a minute to collect yourself, even if only for a couple minutes. You can do this through centering and grounding. Centering is bringing your consciousness to your heart's center, and grounding is embodying and embracing the experience as it is. When you are not centered, you become irrational and imbalanced, act out of character, go to extremes trying to fix things, and miss the point of the lesson. When you are not grounded, you leave your body, go into fight or flight or freeze. Your trauma and control patterns come up, and you turn to vices for relief. It is critical, in a critical moment, to maintain your mind-body connection. When you are in a fight or flight response mode, you are less able to effectively solve problems because your mind and body are in the midst of a panic response. Centering tips to stay rational. Connect with your faith. Remember your guiding life principles. Expect that life happens and embrace the hardships for what it may bring. Talk to someone. Stick to the facts versus jumping to assumptions. Grounding tools to stay calm. Give awareness to your breath. Tap on your meridian points on your face, collarbone, or body. Lay on the ground on your back. Get your hands, face, or body into water. Drink hot tea. Use essential oils, or play an instrument. When you are not in crisis mode, it is helpful to take up mindfulness practices, such as meditation, yoga, breath work, or journaling, to increase your ability to manage crisis in a healthy way should one arise. Back to my example of the family home in foreclosure. You tell your husband, "I'm observing that we have a financial crisis on our hand and that our house might be going into foreclosure. This must have been really heavy for you. I'm going to take a moment for myself to center and ground before we unpack our duties here." Your emotion is tempered and noted. Any fear and anxiety that you have is noted. Your frustration for not knowing is noted. How you could have helped and how you could help now is noted. Noting what is on your mind helps you to relieve your brain so that you can ground in your body. So you enter your study, you turn the lights down, you light some candles, you put on some classical music, and you stretch your body. At this point, you notice that more fear and dread and panic pours into your body. So you note the feeling, and you again acknowledge what you are facing, and you breathe into it, not attached to any particular thoughts. After an hour session, you meet your husband for tea in the chill room. You are ready to respond to and process what this means. Moving into step 3 now, respond and resolve. There is always the immediate response to any changing stimuli. And then there is the after I've had time to cool down response. And then there is the continued and maintenance response that comes after everything settles. The immediate response is always the hardest to control, and this is why it is so important to take a breather. The first split-second response sets the tempo and magnitude for the reaction that is coming. It always helps to respond mindfully. Your power of influence in any given situation shows up in your response to it. A rational, solution-focused response that does not over-dramatize or tie 12 different emotional experiences into this one, but rather a response that takes ownership and offers compassion and support is a great place to start. You want to assess your position. It is important to factor in the degree of control and responsibility that you have in a situation. Control referring to what you are capable of, and responsibility referring to your degree of involvement in a situation. Just because there is a situation doesn't mean that you need to respond or do anything. Oftentimes, best outcomes call for people not to be moved by the shift in things. Next, think things through. Foresight is an ability everyone has. So play out a few hypothetical responses to project possible outcomes of each. This helps to clarify intentions and right action. If I respond like this, then that will probably happen. Or if I respond like that, then this will probably happen. Identify the response that aligns with your best judgment, guiding principles, good intentions, and compassionate heart, and consider your degree of responsibility and range of capability without being attached to any particular outcomes or how other people respond. Next, stay consistent and follow through with your commitment. By definition, crises are not small things. They create major havoc or major shifts in people's lives. The bigger the crisis or hardship, the stronger the call to action, and hence the more action that may be required from you over a longer period of time. Back to the family foreclosure crisis again. You share with your husband your concern and your experience in hearing this news. You've noted all the data from him, all the data from the situation, and what has come up for you. So you let him explain what is going on. Feeling his embarrassment and his shame, you hold compassion in your heart and curiosity in your mind to truly understand what has happened. Through a conversation, you both come to realize that more money is being spent than is coming in. And as a married couple, you have overextended your budget and you are not able to keep up with your financial commitments. So you evaluate where you can cut costs, where you can increase income, and you look for possible best outcomes regarding the house. Because you had taken the time to acknowledge and assess the situation and center and ground yourself, and because you had played out a couple hypothetical situations in your head, you were able to keep the situation from escalating. You saw that any crisis or blame is just going to unravel a daily meltdown in the marriage, and that would inhibit both of you from being able to listen and learn from the experience and integrate an effective response plan. In summary, the beauty in crisis is that when you are put to the test, facing your fears, triggering unresolved trauma, and having to face your most familiar attachments, you also have the chance to transcend those fears, to heal those traumas, and to release those attachments. You have the opportunity to transform your dark particles into light particles. You have the opportunity to deepen the trust in your relationships, to hone your problem-solving and communication skills, and really to level up in any area of your life. Crisis affects us on a multidimensional level, which spawns multidimensional growth. The biggest gains come from the biggest losses, and your greatest abilities are cultivated through your toughest times. Now, to help you integrate today's video, what are 2 good things that have come into your life as a result of crisis, and what could become a good thing from any crises that you may be facing today? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the discussion below, and thank you for watching.